Hello, sunshine. I'm Alexi Lalas, and I'm a CGO.
Always saying guitars are playing a part of who we are. Got a cool job, but there's so much more to the chairmen and women of the pedal board. You're a CGO, Chief Guitar Officer.
The show where success meets guitar.
Welcome to Chief Guitar Officer. I'm Scott Haidt.
And I'm Judd Silver. Scott, would you say growing up, learning how to play music, learning how to play the guitar, did that help you become a more well-rounded person?
Oh, absolutely. I think all those years of playing and being in bands and stuff really helped me a lot in the business world. And it reminds me a bit when I started playing in bands as a kid and even as I got older, the idea of being in a band felt like being on a team.
Yeah, like a really good team.
Oh, yeah.
Like a World Cup team?
Exactly.
Our guest today knows all about this. Grew up loving music, playing guitar, a World Cup soccer star. Scott, tell us who our guest is today.
We're really excited to welcome Alexi Lalas, CGO.
All right, soccer legend, broadcaster, host of the podcast State of the Union, founder of the Gypsies and solo recording artist, CGO, Alexi Lalas. Welcome to Chief Guitar Officer. It's great to have you.
Thanks, guys. This is awesome. All right. Usually I'm up and I'm screaming and yelling about, soccer and stuff like that. And so to be able to meld these two things and the soccer, but also the music, it's a real honor, a privilege, and a pleasure to be with you here. I'm coming to you from Los Angeles, so I'm up and at 'em early, ready to go.
That's
all right.
impressive.
First thing in the day. What are you doing today? What's going on in your day today?
Actually, today, later on, I'm going into, the digital world that we would just crank out the content. So we got some podcasts that we got to crank out here. We got a big summer when it comes to Fox and soccer with the Copa America, which is actually happening in the United States. The U.S. will be a part of that. And then the Euros, which are going on over in Germany. And we're broadcasting both. So we have these overlapping tournaments that I'll be broadcasting. So, it's either feast or famine when it comes to soccer with me. So this summer is going to be awesome.
So what is the general state of the State of the Union podcast? Like how long it's been running for, the frequency?
Let's see. So, everybody's got a podcast and their mother, including my mother. And, so I would never, ever want to tamp down anybody's aspiration or creativity. And so I think the more, the better out there. When it comes to, podcasts, I've been doing this for like over a decade. And when it comes to the soccer podcast, because soccer at times has been niche and underground, they've had to look for alternative ways to get information. And so podcasts have always been around. I mean, it started with, like the web magazines and blogs and all that kind of stuff, and then kind of morphed into the podcast world right now, which is where a lot of soccer people get a lot of their daily dose of soccer. So we do it twice a week, myself and David Mossy. It's done through Fox. And I'll tell you what, the production of it now is a whole nother level. We got our own studio, and we got the lighting and the makeup and the wardrobe and the producers and all that kind of stuff. So it's basically just a television show that we do, obviously in the audio format, but also in the video format, as you know.
So cool. Alexi, you're clearly, obviously, a performer. Could you talk a little bit about the parallel between being on the pitch or the soccer field, being on the world stage as a performer in the soccer space versus or comparable to being a performer as a musician and playing on stage?
Yeah, so, I grew up in the suburbs of Detroit. I grew up in the 70s and 80s. My mom was a writer and my dad was a professor. They had very little or anything to do when it came to sports. They were incredibly supportive of what I did, but on my walls were not soccer players. It was, Stephen Pearcy from Ratt or Joe Elliott from Def Leppard, or Steve Yzerman from the Red Wings. These were my heroes growing up.
Right.
And I only say that because it's changed dramatically. But, I lived this suburban existence, MTV and Slurpees and Bubble Yum, right? And I saw what was happening visually, especially because of the MTV generation. And I saw this DIY type of Sunset Strip musical promotion. And I applied it to sports, right? Because look, I put on a costume, which is the same thing as a uniform. I go on the field, the pitch, whatever you want to call it, which is the same thing as a stage, right? I practice, which is the same thing as rehearsing. And you go in front of an audience, which is the same thing as a crowd. And the way that you look is important. It says something about you. Obviously, the performance doesn't always go right. And there is also a punk ethos that I incorporated in that even when you're playing an away game, playing in Mexico City and there's 100,000 people that hate you and just want you to die because of who you are, because of the way you look, and because of you're American and all the baggage that we bring. I love that. I mean, if you're spitting on me, that's great. What I didn't want was apathy. I didn't want people to change the channel or to turn away or not to care. And so I incorporated that into the sport. And I've always considered myself an entertainer and a performer. And I know some people cringe relative to what that is from a soccer or a sports perspective in general, but it doesn't mean that it's not authentic. Doesn't mean it's not genuine. It's not, and it doesn't mean that I don't believe in it. And I was very comfortable in the skin that I was wearing with the recognition that it was a kind of a costume in that performative type of way that I was approaching the sport.
That's awesome. Let's dig into that and kind of go back. So what about the idea of you being a guitar player, being a musician, how that in itself influenced what and how you brought it on the field?
My mom, she sent me down to piano lessons when I was about 10 years old, like a lot of people out there. And I would go the 2 blocks down to Mrs. Van Heusen's house, this old woman, and I kicking and screaming and cursing my mom the entire way. And she would, get me through the scales, and I would want to play, I'll Wait from Van Halen or something like that. And it introduced me to something and the mathematics of music, and something that is still in my life to this day. And I know I was a better athlete and a better soccer player for having music in my life. And then, I did all the garage bands, and I did, a cappella and barbershop and chamber singers and all this kind of stuff. The only A I ever got growing up when I was in school was Mr. Bellinger. God rest his soul. He took pity on me and allowed me just to scream and yell, but also taught me how to read music and taught me how to harmonize and taught me how to control my voice and do all that kind of stuff. And my mom had an old acoustic guitar, and she was kind of an old hippie and would sing, I Gave My Love a Cherry and stuff like that. And so she taught me a couple of chords, and I said, thanks, Mom, that's great. I'll take it from here. And then, whatever bands I was in, I would have the guitar player teach me some different stuff. And, the guitar has been a constant companion and a friend in my life everywhere I have gone. And it has acted not just as a friend, but also a sounding board, literally a sounding board, but also a kind of a diary as to everywhere that I've been. And every different place that I've gone to, I can reference back to what guitars I had and the songs that I was writing and all that kind of stuff. So music is and continues to be a huge part of my life.
So cool.
That's awesome.
So cool. You've obviously inspired a lot of people to play soccer or get into sports as kids. What kind of advice would you give to a parent to maybe encourage their kids to get into playing guitar?
Yeah, it's such an interesting question, and in particular because of the age in which we live in, right? I know you guys know, and everybody that's listening or watching, we are in the age of specialization. And from a soccer perspective, for people that don't know, soccer is a 90-minute game, right? And we are so focused and concentrated right now on making better soccer players that we are sometimes forgetting and abdicating our responsibility of the other 22 and a half hours that happen. So the 90 minutes, that'll take care of itself. But if we also don't give people the tools and the experiences to handle the other 22 and a half hours, like I said, I think we're doing ourselves and ultimately our country and culture a disservice. I think this is the greatest country in the world, and I want these men and women that eventually are going to lead our country to be as well equipped as possible. And through sports, whether it's soccer or anything else, I think you can learn lessons. And it's a really interesting time. I would just say that my mom and my dad made sure that I tried as many different things. There's a wonderful commercial that came out years ago. I don't know if anybody remembers it, but it's this mom taking her son around to every different thing. And, some of the things he's just horrible at or doesn't like. And they just go around trying different things. And even in that moment when she is, first off, showing that she cares, second off, giving that gift of experimentation and even failure. But it's so important because you never know what you're going to really, hold on to and grasp onto and love. And so I was thankfully given that gift at an early age of being exposed to a lot of things. And you pick some and choose some and you throw some away and go on. But if you don't have that, and if you're so specialized, again, I just think that, the amount of players that end up being professional is just, infinitesimal. Right? It's just so small. So concentrate on just having better human beings as opposed to having better athletes. And in doing so, expose them to as many different things as possible. And by the way, I haven't kicked a ball in over 20 years. So while sports can be an important part of your life, it also can be a very small part of your life. And yet I play the guitar every single day. I sing every single day.
Yeah,
and so that's something that's been involved in my life the entire time, as opposed to sports from a professional perspective. It's a very small period and is relative to your physical abilities.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into a little bit of guitar. So you mentioned some of this and some posters on the wall and whatnot. What is your earliest memory of guitar?
Let's see. So my first concert, I would have been like 1982-ish. I would have been 11 or 12. Pine Knob Music Theater, right outside of Detroit there. Pat Benatar, the Crimes of Passion tour. And I walked in, and I'll never forget, obviously, the sounds, the smells, the sights, all that kind of stuff. And Neil Giraldo, right, obviously, just sitting up there. And while everybody's there for Pat, it's also this guitar god and the sound and the power coming from it. So, I remember these moments, like walking into that concert. I remember walking in and seeing Bon Jovi open up for Ratt, or Cinderella opening up for Bon Jovi on the Slippery When Wet tour. Right. Or at one point in the late, 80s, early 90s and stuff like that, I was infatuated with a group called Till Tuesday. Amy Mann, wonderful singer-songwriter, incredible.
Awesome.
And I heard that she was opening up for the Kinks at the same music place at the Pine Knob Music Festival. And so I was only going to see her. And I walked in and I look on the board and it's Amy Mann is canceled. And I actually walked out of the Kinks because I only wanted to see Amy Mann. So I was very eclectic in the music that I loved. If it was good, it was good. I remember, because there's always a girl involved, I remember I found my way to a Indigo Girls concert because I was just trying to chase this girl up there. So, you never know where music will take you. It winds and bends and all that kind of stuff.
The things we do for love, right? Yeah. That's just the way it rolls.
Yeah. But my first ever was going next door to Tommy Carter's house, and his older brother put the needle down, and Whole Lotta Love came on. And I mean, just that riff and that power, and for a young, 10-year-old or whatever I was, it was crazy. And then the next day I'm listening to, Air Supply and going, this is awesome too. Like the melodies and the juxtaposition. It's just the songs. Yeah. I mean,
and that inspired you. Like did you pick up guitar right away? Like take us through that period until like when you formed the Gypsies.
Yeah. So I started with the piano, then I picked up the guitar and, really rudimentary type of stuff. And then I started bands when I was in middle school and then into high school, and we did Battle of the Bands and we did talent shows and did all that stuff. And then I went to college in New Jersey at Rutgers University and immediately got into a band there. And, we stole Jimmy's moniker, if you will, and called ourselves the Gypsies. And we played at fraternities and different clubs and did all that. And we would go down to the city and we would play at like CBGB's and Kenny's Castaways and the Bitter End and these places down in New York City. And it was a wonderful way to see the city. It was a wonderful way to meet friends. And that's the other thing. When I was growing up, obviously there's, stereotypes, right? So you have the jock group, and which I was heavily involved in, but I was also had friends and involved in, the music group of people. And that was huge because it doesn't always happen. And so my pool of friends and my pool of experiences expanded because of that. And that continued in college. It's how I met people. It's how I got, notoriety. It's how I, fulfilled whatever was in me and all that kind of stuff. So music has so many different ways of touching us. And even if we don't even associate it, sometimes I'll say, you know what? I met that person specifically because of music. And that's a cool thing to attribute to music.
We mentioned the Gypsies, and you put out a whole bunch of records. Any new releases or things you're working on? Because I think I heard a record that you put out 2022, 23.
That was Melt Away, right?
That was Melt Away.
So I put that. So I've been putting out, a lot for my mom and my other two fans. Basically an hour every album every couple of years. But it's fun. I love to do it. It's an expression. Like I said, it's also a diary of who I am, and I can look back into the catalog at all the different albums that I have. And everything out there is under my own name. So if you just look up Alexi Lalas, you can find it on all the different platforms out there. And there's stuff that I did back in the 90s. I recorded an album in Italy and did all that. And it's taken me around the world. And So I'm here in my studio here, which is my office, as we know, and I'm continuing to work on stuff. So I'll have something out probably before the 26 World Cup. So here in the next couple of years, and
Cool.
I try to work on it as much as I possibly can. Like I said, every couple of years I was putting out something, and nowadays you can, but it's just fun, and I really enjoy doing it, and it's always in me, and it will always be in me until the day I die. So
Love it.
That's so great.
Do you have a guitar there?
Sure. So, I have about 50 guitars, and look, don't come at me with all the jargon, because I don't know what they are. They weren't bought for resale or anything like that. They a lot of it's aesthetics. You guys had me scared. I'm looking up serial numbers this morning. I'm like, geez, I hope I get this right. All right. So over here, this is a Guild here. So I am a huge Guild fan when it comes to acoustics.
I love Guilds,
I just love the sound. It was not my very first guitar was a Peavey guitar that my mom bought for me. She drove me up to whatever it was, Guitar Center or something in Detroit, right outside of Detroit there, and bought it for me. I still have it. It's been hacked to death and everything like that. But I do have my first guitar. But that was my first electric guitar. My first acoustic guitar, other than the one that my mom gave me and that I ultimately broke, was a Guild. And I lost it. It's like the one that got away, right? So it is somewhere out there in the world, in that I lent it to somebody at one point, and it was a time when I got traded from one team to another, and in the move, I don't know where it is, but it's out there. It's identifiable, all right? And it's a red Guild 6-string. But I love the sound of Guilds. This one here, if you can't really see it here, and if you're listening to it, I'll just describe it to you. It's held together by basically duct tape or clear tape and everything like that, because many years ago, in a fit about something, I can't even remember what the hell I was angry about, I did chuck this, and it was and when it left my hand, the instant it left my hand, I said, "This is the dumbest thing that I have ever done."
Wow.
But I've literally taped it back together, and it still sounds great to me. And it's got plenty of songs that have come out of it. And I think all of us that play guitar have the on-hand guitar, in that it's right next to you, and it's easy, and it's not necessarily the prettiest or anything like that, but it's your go-to, and it's it's just special for that reason. But I will go through my guitars, and I will look at it and say, you know what? I remember that I was in Uruguay when I bought that, or I was over in Europe when I got this one. I don't keep necessarily traditional diaries other than the songs that I write, but a lot of the guitars I associate with times in my life. And I love that about the guitar, in that it's not even the sound or the music that it produces. It's just the visual part of it that can bring me back to, I know where I was in my life at that time, and this was what was happening. This is where I got this guitar, and it's just a really cool piece. In that sense, it's a piece of art, if you will, that reminds you and inspires you about things.
And a friend, Alexi, you travel a lot probably for work. Do you usually bring a guitar with you?
Yep. So when I go to World Cups, which is where I'm usually at a place for like 6 weeks, I will often bring a guitar. I've had the travel guitars before, the small little ones and stuff, and the sound's not great. But it's easier when you're traveling. But I've gone back to just bringing the big guitar and going from there. But yeah, I like to have it. Again, it is a respite. It is a break. It is cathartic to be able to have that, and especially when you're doing a tournament where it's day in and day out. When you get back to your room and you're just chilling out and relaxing, and you do need to find ways to separate from all of the soccer that's going on, and I love it. I'm very, very lucky to be able to do it, and the guitar is there. I've also, over the years, written a lot of stuff while I'm on the road, and nowadays with the technology that we have.
So you've been doing pre-production for the next record already.
Yes, there we go. Exactly.
All those voice memos are recorded in some hotel room somewhere.
And then I know you guys or others will relate, where you have to go through them, because I don't always label them, and I'm like going back, and this is all right. This is the first version of it, but I know I did a couple other versions of it later on, and so I want to delete those and just get to the real one. But it is a living record of how sometimes songs are created.
And just the process of doing that. I mean, you have your guitar there, like Scott said, your friend, you're on the road with your friend. Is that the good, will you travel with that when you're not afraid of getting it scratched, I guess, at this point?
Yeah, I'm not, again, I don't, I called it a work, a piece of art, and some of them obviously are worth more than others, but I never bought for the value. And I always looked at it as, notwithstanding the fact that I threw the one across the room. But just if it breaks or if something happens, then the soccer gods, or I guess in this case the guitar gods, they wanted it back, and it was meant to be. But I don't worry about that. Whatever happens, happens.
No fear.
No fear. No fear.
That's awesome.
That's fantastic.
Where are the best places for people to find you and check you out?
Yeah, so like I said, I work for Fox, and we have a huge summer of soccer coming. And then obviously in the next couple of years leading up to 2026, where the Men's World Cup is returning. And, one of the reasons why I'm talking to you today is because of the 1994 World Cup, which the U.S. hosted. It changed my life forever, and I lived the power of what a World Cup can do to an individual. We have that coming back in 2026, and it's going to be bigger and better than ever, and we're leading up to that when it comes to what we're doing at Fox. The State of the Union podcast, which I continue to put out with my good friend David Mossy twice a week. The music is out on Spotify and Apple Music and all the different platforms that you have out there, so you can stream it, you can download it, you can buy it, you can do all those different things. I'm on X at Alexi Lalas. I'm on Instagram at Alexi_Lalas, if you will. And I'm constantly riling people up.
We can see and feel your passion for music, which we love. It's really why we wanted to talk to you. And it's just great to hear all those stories. So thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. Are you kidding
me? This is great. Like I said, this is not something that I've done a whole lot of. And I really, really appreciate you guys reaching out. And I love the fact that you're doing it. There's a lot of interesting music stories within the sports world and within the soccer world out there. And there's a lot of overlap and threads when it comes to soccer and music out there. And so, they call it the beautiful game because of the melody and because of the rhythm that exists in it. And so I think it lends itself a lot to music.
Perfect. Alexi, thank you so much. Thank you. It was
You're
great
welcome.
to see you.
You're welcome.
That's our show. Thanks for watching. And remember to like and subscribe to our channel. Check us out on all the socials at Chief Guitar Officer.
And we want you on the show. Go to chiefguitarofficer.com, look for the section called You're a CGO, send us your video, and be featured on a future episode. Just like this.
Hey there. I'm Mark Sherman, actor from Los Angeles, California, and this is my PRS 245, the SE version, and I am a Chief Guitar Officer.